Hey, everybody, welcome to our X Vault. And I want to introduce special guest Tadine, who is starting a new show called Cocktails from the Crypt. Hey, Tadine.
Hey, how's it going?
And she's going to, in addition to talking about some of her experiences with the paranormal and her opinions on that, and something called that I didn't know of until she had told me about, but called the Witch's Tree in Kansas. And that was a really cool story that she'll be telling us about. She's also going to be showing us some drinks that she's interested in and experimenting with some mixology right in front of us. She
Oh,
also wants to do a show on her own channel down the road that's whiskey themed. So anybody that's interested in any of that, please comment below on the YouTube. So welcome, Tadine. Thank you for joining.
hi. Hi. How's it going?
So what are you drinking right now, or what would you like to start
Am I
with?
not drinking anything? Because earlier when I was testing recipes, I got a little tipsy. So I was like, let me just not drink anything right now so I can be a little bit functional, if that's a word,
Yeah.
while doing this. So yeah, I created a new recipe per se for a new martini. So today we're gonna do whiskey. My theme is whiskey for the day because I was trying to do like a Halloweeny kind of thing, and I Googled Kentucky lores or Kentucky mysterious events, and I came up with the witches. I found a few things, but the witches tree really kind of like spoke to me. It's really cool because it's a maple tree, so my one of my drinks is gonna have maple syrup in it. But basically, these witches would convene around them or have their coven around this maple tree, which is like in the center of Louisville, Kentucky. And funny enough, I tried to find somebody from Kentucky to do something to talk about it with me, but apparently it's not the friendliest to my kind. So I definitely got zero feedback on that. Um, but in the middle of Louisville, Kentucky, there's a big tree, and apparently there's a tree there now because it was I guess a replant or a different kind. But there was this maple tree where these witches hung out at and did their coven, and they wanted to, the men of the land wanted to chop it down to do a heyday festival at that. It's not even like we need wood to warm ourselves or to cook or anything. It's just for a festival. And the witches were like, no, don't do this. But they went ahead and did it anyway. And the witches warned them before doing it in a spell, and I'll read the spell later. Basically, don't cut this tree down. If you cut this tree down in 11 months, something bad is going to happen. And sure enough, they cut the tree down. And 11 months later, a tornado flattened all of Louisville, Kentucky, the city.
Oh, well, what year was this when that happened?
I want to say it was 1911. I'm gonna cheat real quick and go back to it. The witch's tree. Oh wait, I have it in my.
I did after you mentioned it to me, I looked it up and I did see a picture of the really gnarled looking tree. So I'll try to add that to the
Awesome, yeah.
to the podcast.
Well, there's no particular year. It says the late 19th century. But I guess we could look that up later, and then like add a little thing at the bottom.
Yeah, the one that I saw was that. So yeah, so after they chopped it down, and then like you said, there was a tornado was it that struck later?
Yeah.
Like less than a year later. And then I guess I don't know if it was during the storm that spawned the tornado or during a later storm, but lightning, I think it was during that storm, lightning struck the stump. And then supposedly the tree grew back, and the tree that's in the picture that we'll post it is really a creepy looking tree.
Yeah.
Supposedly that's the one that grew back in that place.
So it was March 28th, 1990. I'm sorry, 1890.
1890. Oh, okay. Yeah.
1890. So it was what, 130 years ago? 131 years ago. Yeah. So yeah, they told them beware the witch's tree. And it says May Day celebrations were held in the wood of the maple later being burned in a great Whitsuntide bonfire. and everyone forgot about the witches. And then it's funny because the warning, it was just so, they were like, the tree shall, let me just say it all out. It says, the tree shall stand and not be cut. We fed her with our laughter, our leafy heaven you'll not gut. Or pray forever, but if you do, wouldn't king prevail? Or, but if you, wouldn't king prevail, and Mother Maple dies, the force of fate shall strike thee this town, and right between the eyes. If our tree falls, yes, fate will call to teach you heartless dunce. I love that word dunce. That all man's work can disappear. Beware the 11th month. And then, of course, 11 months later, they got the tornado because they didn't heed the warning. And so, yeah.
So how bad was the tornado? Did it destroy Louisville or just like?
Yeah, it totaled the whole city. 11 months later, it was the deadliest tornado, and it flattened, like literally flattened the whole city. They had to rebuild. Yeah.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty cool, and it just goes like to talk about like men and them just not respecting nature. And
Well, I happen to live right at the heart of Witch Central for the USA, and I am very close to Salem, Mass.
yeah.
And the town that I am in, Andover, Mass, actually had more witches prosecuted during the Salem witch trials. As it spread, they came up here, and I don't remember how many dozens of people, but there's a house at the bottom of the street from me that is called the Witch House. And it gets murky in terms of who lived in there's two houses there, but both of them are really old.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's cousin grew up in one of them, and he had all kinds of ghost stories and stuff like that. But this was a woman was hung. She was accused of witchcraft. She lived somewhere in this area. She was accused by the person who lived in that house. And so they took her away. Her name was Martha Carrier. And it's a really interesting story because not only her, but her husband. So Martha Carrier married this guy who was 7'4". And back then, if you were 6 feet tall, you were a giant.
Yeah.
These, like, I've been in some of these old houses, and you have to duck when you're going up the stairs because the ceiling is so low. They were just much shorter. And so this guy was 7'4". Now he came over to this country, or we were, to the colonies. We were colonies back then. He was rumored to have been, if you go back to about 20 years before that, there was a revolution in England, and they deposed the king. So King James, who had, I think, wanted to bring back Catholicism, and they beheaded him. And this guy was rumored to be one of the king's guard. So and they got him to do the job. And he didn't do it out of anger towards the king, but just he wanted to make sure the job got done right. And that part of the story is rumor, so no one knows for sure. But then for a while they didn't have a king, and Parliament ruled. But then, I think it was about 10, 15 years later, they decided to go back to the monarchy. And the first steps the new king wanted to do was hunt down anybody associated with killing the previous king.
Yeah.
So this guy, even though he had not done it out of anger, his name was on a list. So he had to come over to this country. And he came over here, landed in Montreal, and walked through all the way down to Boston, that's got to be 700 miles now. And now you have roads. There would have been no roads back then. You're walking through hostile Indian territory, but came down here and eventually, was a laborer working, and eventually met this woman that he married and lived in this area. And she eventually is the one that gets accused of being a witch. So they come and take her to Salem to go on trial. And he must have been a gentle giant because he didn't seem to resist. And they not only took her, but they took the kids because they tortured the kids in order to get them to testify against the mom. That's how it was back then.
Names for these men, for men's behavior. always getting blamed for bad behavior of men.
Well, one of the reasons,
Whole
so
other podcast.
and she one of the reasons she got they hung her, right, eventually, and one of the reasons was like, if you confessed that you were a witch, they would have let you go.
Apparently, yeah.
She refused.
Yeah.
She's like, you people are crazy.
Yeah.
You people are crazy. I'm obviously, I'm not a witch, and I'm not, and she was, I guess she really was kind of foul mouthed, at least the way they looked at it back then. She was one of those women that she's going to give it as well as she can take it, even in a court. She wasn't going to put up with any bullshit.
Yeah.
So she, but you know, her daughter, who was 6 years old, obviously under pressure or whatever, testified, and you can read these in the Massachusetts court documents. Her daughter testified that her mother had taken her down to the river. Now, this river is down the bottom of the street from me, and I've walked across it 1,000 times. You know, I used to walk downtown to the library all the time and walk along it. That was supposedly Satan's river. It's called the Shawsheen River, and that's apparently where. So she testified that her mother brought her down to sign Satan's book. That basically means you belong to Satan.
Yeah,
and
that was a story back then, you know.
Yeah, and so she testified that Satan appeared at the river and her mother got her to sign the book and blah blah blah, and you know, so it reminds me of the Monty Python. She's a witch. She's a witch. It's just so stupid, you know.
Yeah.
But,
or the crucible, or
yeah.
I mean, that was the thing back then. Is like, if you were a witch per se, you had to worship Satan, you know, and if you look into witchcraft, that's not the case. But because of the religious aspect of life back then, it was just like, that was the difference between witches and non-witches. It was like, if you're godly.
And the only thing I can say a little bit is, if you put yourself in the shoes of those people back then. So this area was all woods, with little farming communities interspersed throughout, right? And they lived surrounded by the Indians who they had warred with, and both sides raided the other. And just 10 years before, I think it was 10 or 11 years before this, we had King Philip's War, and they had raided and killed a whole bunch of people in this town and some of these towns around it. Or they would come in and steal your son would be out working in the land, and the Indians would steal him. And sometimes Indians, they don't really have any sense of race like, say, modern people do. So if they needed a boy, they stole the boy and just raised him as their own. They didn't look at him as a white boy. They just looked at him as a boy, you know? So, but from the perspective of the locals, they're still getting somebody's, a son stolen. So, but you can imagine just being surrounded by those dark woods and this, and all the legends that and these were pretty ignorant people, all around and stuff. So, I mean, I could see where stories get out of hand, and you still had wild wolves around then, and
the boy who cried wolf, all of that.
But they had real wolf. I mean, the wolves were a real problem. They actually had bounties. If you killed a wolf, you got paid for every wolf you killed, whatever it was. Paid pretty good. Yeah. So it seems so sad now because I love dogs. But that was a danger back then.
They weren't as easy to domesticate then. I mean, I'm sure you can't really domesticate a wolf now, but
no, yeah.
But but
it's such a shame because they're so intelligent, and yeah. So let's have a drink. I gotta reach back and grab.
So I'm gonna do the shot first.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try something here, right?
All right.
So in honor of the tornado, I'm gonna try to see if I can get a tornado effect with the whiskey and the Baileys.
That is a big bottle of Jack.
It inspired this whole situation.
That's like what is that, like 1.5 liters or something?
Huh?
What is that, like 1.5 liters?
It is probably, I don't see where it tells me.
That thing is huge. Unless you're a lot smaller.
Huh?
Unless you're a lot smaller, like you're only about 4 feet tall.
I'm a tiny person. No, I'm not a tiny person. It's a big bottle. So yeah.
Oh my God. Look how big that thing is.
hook it up. All
It's
right,
like
so
a
I'm gonna start
barrel.
with straw,
Yep.
and then let's see what I'm gonna pour the Baileys. Let's see, we're doing science experiments too, you know, that's what bartending really is. And then we're gonna pour
Are you gonna try to? What are you trying to float it, or what are you trying to do?
the straw. Well, not really. I'm just gonna try to create like a
Oh, like something like creepy looking, like a
tornado. It didn't really do the tornado thing that I wanted it to do.
Oh, you're trying to make a tornado. All right.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
trying to do like the swirl, you know, but it didn't really work out. So I'm just gonna cheers.
Cheers. And I'm drinking. What would I say this is called again? Limoncello.
Woo!
So
Yeah.
you came there. There was a drink that we used to do in the bar all the time, and I spent most of my life in the bar industry. That was Jameson's whiskey with
Uh-huh.
Bailey's in it,
Uh-huh.
dropped in a half a glass of Guinness, and you
Oh, that's
slugged it
an
all down.
Irish car bomb,
An Irish
man.
car bomb. That's right.
Come on. I've
Yeah.
got the time. I am like, oh, I have the time record.
Oh, you're a chugger, huh?
Beat me, but I have a really good timing on that. Like I am like, "Grr, I'm good. Boom, I'm done.
It's amazing how good those taste, isn't it?
I know, right? So yummy and delicious. And yeah, I have to have at least one on St. Patrick's Day parade day. At
Mhm.
least one every time I go out there. You know.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older, I do less. But before I could like 3-4 of them. Boom, 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 boom.
Now that I'm no longer in the bar business, I think it's probably been 10, 11 years since I've done one, but I did, hundreds and hundreds of them back in the day. I mean, I was in the bar business for 20 years. So
Yeah.
I miss it. I miss doing those.
I know I do. I have like dreams about being in the bar from time to time. Can you hear my neighbors?
Yeah, but that's okay. That's normal. That's not like feedback noise. So that's okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm like,
We can live with that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. I feel like I should have like something to drink to wash all this stuff. There you go. I'll have my ginger beer. Oh wait, let me grab my other thing. Okay, so my cocktail is going to be made on a sangria.
Yeah.
Per set, right? So it's going to be rocks glass. I like to put ice first when I make my drinks for some weird, because I feel like it mixes the drink without having to shake it. You know, it's not a martini. We don't, so putting ice out.
It also the liquor gets colder as you're pouring it over the ice too.
No, yeah, but I like to drop my ice later, like because I feel like it also melts the liquor.
Oh, you drop it later. Okay, all right.
Yeah, add it after. So bear with me. So for anyone that's a measurer, you can use a jigger, but I'm a free pourer.
Yeah.
So,
which is hard when you have a bottle that's like the size of a barrel.
when you've bartended for years, like I have, I think you can eye it.
It's gonna be tough with that bottle. It's gonna be really hard with that bottle.
Right. So I'm gonna do about 1.5 ounces
Okay.
of whiskey.
That's like a Sam's Club bottle of Jack Daniels. If Sam's Club had booze.
Okay, so my favorite thing about living in LA or on the West Coast altogether, because I go to Vegas and even Arizona, it's the same thing. You can buy liquor literally anywhere. I mean, anywhere. Pharmacy, some gas stations.
Yeah.
Grocery stores. So yeah, this came from the grocery store.
Oh, maybe that's why they have them. I've never seen one that big.
Yeah. So I did my 1.5 ounces of whiskey. Now we're gonna do about 1 ounce of orange liqueur or triple sec. You can use Grand Marnier if you like. But I'm gonna do triple sec. I'm gonna do about 1 ounce of triple sec.
I'm gonna finish this limoncello just because I hate to waste, but I don't care for it actually. I'd much rather have one of yours.
Okay, so I love ginger beer, and I know it's not very sangria-y, and So I'm not gonna add ginger beer to this tonight. But one of my other recipes that somebody should take in is like a whiskey mule, which is on everybody's list. It's like a Moscow mule, but with whiskey.
Mm.
So, but my chaser drink right now is a ginger beer. So I'm gonna drink some real quick. And what I'm missing is a cranberry.
So is this something you slug down as a shot, or is it just meant, or is it an actual drink that you sort of?
This is a cocktail.
That's a cocktail, okay.
Cocktail.
And it's orange liqueur, whiskey, and cranberry.
A little bit. Okay, so I like my cranberry flavored mixes, right? So I usually get like the cran apple, or
I like those too. Yeah.
Grape. So it's whatever your flavor is, you can do for your drink mixer. But I'm gonna.
Would you say that's cran grape?
Yeah, cran grape.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No free ads, right? Except for Jack. I'm gonna do just like
sponsored by the makers of cran grape.
Maybe a little bit more cran grape, because there's gonna be a top off with something else. Oh, that does not go on top of that.
So when you work in a bar, do you make it like that? Or you put the ice last in the bar when you work, or?
Sometimes it depends on the drink, yeah, but most of the time, yeah. If it's just like a neat shot or something, or not a neat, sorry, if it's on the rocks shot, then I'll put the ice first. But if it's a mixed drink, then I'll put the ice later, because I feel like the ice helps mix it.
Yeah.
So
you don't actually mix it like
cocktail or something like that. Then like if it's like a rum and coke or something like that, then I'll do the rum, the coke, and then drop the ice.
Right.
Yeah. So, but so now it's ice. So I did whiskey, orange liqueur, and my cranberry flavored drink. So now I'm gonna add my ice, and that's gonna mix that up. Then you're gonna pop bottles, baby.
Is that champagne?
It is. It's sparkling wine. It's not from France, so it's sparkling wine.
We call that champagne. When we used to give it away for free on New Year's Eve, we called it champagne.
It's free on New Year's Eve. Okay, so bear with me. I'm usually way better at this, at like opening bottles. I did bartend for like 11 plus years, so trust, I am a little bit better than I'm behaving right now.
Well, you're probably usually standing up when you do it in a bar too.
That's true. That is true. You're right. I never sit down when I'm working at the bar.
When you're working in front of a bar, everything you get used to being exactly where your hand expects it to be. And so if you've worked at a place for years, and then all of a sudden someone else sets up differently, and they have you come in for and sub in, all of a sudden you're all off kilter because nothing is where you're used to it,
Yeah.
So you
mess maker. Okay, so now you top it off with your sparkling wine. So everything, the base, the triple sec, the whiskey, the cranberry is already mixed through the ice, and then the champagne or the sparkling wine tops it off. So.
I think the advantage of doing it that way, you would normally want to shake it, but if there's carbonated beverage in it, you do, like or wine, you don't want to shake it. You don't want to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cheers. This is an Oktoberfest.
And for me too, it's also a speed thing for a speed bar, right? I mean, I'm used to being a speed bartender versus a show bartender.
Yeah.
So if I'm making like 5 or 6 of these, I'm gonna do it that way, the way I did it, because it's faster. It's faster for me to do my 2 ounce pour, pour, throw the ice on, champagne across.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Get it out, versus like trying to shake it all, and then that's just an extra step for me. It's just like, and then unless it's a martini or something like that, or a drink that requires shaking, then there's no reason to like waste that time or the energy to have to dirty your shaker and then have to clean it. Come on, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh my God, that is freaking delicious.
Oh, it looks good. Cranberry is
so good. Oh my gosh. Come here, baby. I'm gonna have to. No, you don't want to be a part of my show? No. He said he was gonna be a guinea pig, but he changed his mind. But this is so good. You guys should so try this at home. Like it doesn't even, you don't even really taste the grape part of it. So again, it doesn't have to be cran grape. It can be cran apple, cran, just straight cranberry, whatever you want. Even white cranberry is delicious.
Yeah.
But it's like a sangria-ish. Yeah, but with whiskey, you know. I don't know
Sounds
if you
good.
like, yeah, you're bartending. And did you go through the sangria phase when you were
Yeah.
bartending, when you had your bar? Or you still have your bar, right? You said?
No, I don't. And we didn't do a lot of sangria, no. But
Okay, so like I'm from Dallas. Like most of my persona was developed in Dallas and stuff like that. And I worked in bar. Most of my bar time was in Dallas, and there was a phase where everyone was doing white and red sangrias, and it was usually like a liquor base, like a vodka or something like that base, and then they would add the champagne and then whatever the thing is. So that was like, that's where this is inspired from, was that time period. And I mean, it is still on other people's menus, but it's not as a trend right now. It's like what's the new trend? James or green tea shots or something like that.
I you know what? I am so far. I mean, I was in the business from 1987 until 2010, but since I've been out of it, I have no idea. I just had my first seltzer this summer. You know, those seltzer those cans, which is really just, most of it's just like a vodka something usually, right? But I mean, but I have to admit they were pretty good. I had them at the beach. I thought they were good, but no, I whatever's trending now, I have no idea.
I had the Moscow Mule in a can the other day for the first time. It was on sale at Kroger, so I grabbed the 4-pack and I polished them off within like 2 days. Like I had 2 each night. They were really delicious. It was like one of those things, like it's like soda, and it's like you have to be careful with those things too, because you could just like chug them along. Next thing you know, you're like inebriated.
So you were bartending in Dallas?
I was bartending in Dallas. Yeah.
How's the nightlife there?
I started my career in New York actually as a waitress. Yeah. I think I didn't do my first bartending until, oh no, I'm lying. I did bartend in New York at TGI Fridays in Brooklyn. That was my first time bartending. And, yeah. And then when I came to Dallas,
So you've hit 2 major metropolises to the
right. So, no,
and 2 very different cultures, right? Like 2 like totally different culture from New York to Dallas.
Oh yeah, way different culture. Funny enough, I made way more money bartending and waiting tables in Dallas.
That doesn't surprise me at all. That doesn't surprise me at all, because, and I've also, from my experience, working people tipped way better than wealthy people. Wealthy people don't tip for shit. No. You know, they calculate, what's 15%, and they give you their 15%. Whereas
which later on now that I'm a little older, I'm like working in those and seeing those people and the way they behave and stuff like that. Like they're not going to disrespect you by not leaving your 20% if you have the service and stuff, but they're just like, I'm not going to give you more than you deserve. And I get that because we as bartenders, we're thinking about all the emotional side of it, right? And things like that. But they're thinking business. At the end of the day, for them, while they came out to have a joyous experience, money for them is business altogether. So everything they do is absolutely calculated, like you said. They're going to calculate it to a T. Like everything. And I'm like, I wish I could live like that. Sometimes like I can save so much money if I tried to live like that, you know?
I think this, like, now that I think about it, I think there's like a few different reasons. So one thing is, like, if you're going into a busy bar, right, and you kind of know that you got to tip good if you want to get that bartender to come back to you, like, so you're not going to wait 15 minutes for a drink every time. So you make sure you throw in a $5 bill or something like that, or whatever they tip now. I didn't mean to date myself, but the rich person doesn't even think like that, because they just assume the world is there to take care of them. Whereas the working person is thinking that person behind the bar is also a working person, and they're going to go to where the reward is. Or another thing too is, like, if you go into a bar that, let's say you're on a slower night, so that's not a factor. When you or I are leaving a tip, we think about it. It's also like a reflection of us. Like, I don't want to feel like a cheap person. So
we think about the emotional side of it.
But they don't. They're already full of themselves, so they don't really think of that. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they don't even, like, for me, if I accidentally left a cheap tip somewhere, I would like lose sleep that night. They don't even, they wouldn't even think about it,
I get it. I go to restaurants and I'm like, immediately it's automatically 20%
Mhm.
for me. And the only time I go below 20%, and I guarantee I never go below 15, even if they're terrible, is they have to be really terrible for me to tip 15%. And that's like for me a punishment for them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not like it's my job to punish them, but it's like you didn't give me the service I deserve.
They have to be neglectful. Like if they're just like bumbling and stuff, then you're like,
yeah. But still, there's that sense of understanding, right? Of like, this is the job, this is what they do for a living. Even though they do it to the best of their abilities, I can't let them be here without something in their hand, you know? So that's where my 15% lies. But then the baseline is 20, and then it goes down. The bottom line is 15, unfortunately. But there are some lucky servers out there that have gotten 100% from me and stuff like that. And I'm not talking just about on a $5 bill or something like that either. You know what I'm saying? Because they've gone above and beyond with the service, like I do. You know, like my husband is signing with me because it's like I go and I'm like, this is wrong. Like, why are they like, this is what they should be doing, you know, things like that. And because I've experienced it and I've done it. And for me, it's like, if I'm doing a job, I need to make sure that I'm doing it to the best of my ability. And I need to make sure that I've done everything right. So that if there are any complaints, it's not with what I have done. In any way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying? So like, I mean, I've had experiences where my managers would like pull me to another table for a difficult customer because they knew it was coming and they knew that I was going to be able to make sure that no matter what, nothing went wrong. You know what I'm saying? So like, and then now I'm like going out and I'm like, it's been years since I've been in the industry and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, do you guys not get trained well anymore? You know, because training was like a part of the thing. It was like everyone needs to be trained. Even in my like more casual experiences, bars and restaurants that I've worked in, still the training was still like an epitome.
Well, I think the problem now is labor shortage. So so like that's you know it was hard to get a bartending job back then. It was even probably hard to get a waitressing job. So you had someone that was waitressing or bartending, they've been doing it for years, so they got good at what they were doing. But now there's such a labor shortage that you're constantly trying to bring in new people and train them, and you know, so it's not going to be as good.
So they just like it's fine, you're good enough, I don't feel like paying for another training session, you know. But I like that, isn't that a part of the industry, is to like keep going, like to recycle? Because when I was there, it was a big recycling, or not recycling, it was a big shift. There was always a big shift. There was always new people coming in, always old people going out, people coming in, things like that. You're not working out, you're not doing the job right, you're not living up to our standards of service.
But it's just like, it's like anything now, even if you go to like a supermarket, right? The supermarket, you know, when I was growing up, you got a job somewhere, you had to put up with whatever shit the boss gave you, because otherwise you might not get another job. But these kids now, they know, you know, if they show up late for work and you fire them, they'll just get a job somewhere else tomorrow, because there's a labor shortage, so they have all the leverage. And so the boss knows that, so the boss puts up with all kinds of shit because they have to.
That makes sense. And it's funny because sometimes I get an itch and I'm like, okay, I'm bored of, now that I'm retired from real estate, when I was doing, well, I'm not retired from real estate, but when I was doing real estate full time, I would still get an itch to go and do a bartending gig, or, you know, I'm like, oh, I could have just worked this week in the restaurant and not have to deal with this person's crap and just do it and be done with it, you know, and not have to take it home with me versus real estate where I'm like, my job is 24/7, you know, but it's like recently, last year, I went and I worked in a restaurant, and like you said, the bosses are just like, whatever. I feel like even like management level now, maybe it's like you said, the labor shortage, even management level are just like, they don't give a hoot about the service anymore. You know,
it's just so hard.
I worked with this manager and he seemed like the sweetest guy when I first met him. Like, I was there to help and everything like that. But then things would happen, and then his attitude just towards the guest, you know, was just so shitty.
Oh man, that's bad. You should. It's one thing to be hard on the staff sometimes, but you should never take it out on the customer. That's just.
Well, it wasn't even like he was taking, but he would come back, you know, and he would just like, his attitude was just like, oh, well, because it was a more how do I say this? I don't want to say rich neighborhood, but they were more upper class.
Yeah.
The neighborhood where the restaurant sat. It was like
Yeah.
it was a bunch of rich kids kind of thing. You know, that area where you're transitioning from college into adult life, but
Yeah.
mom and dad are still like paying for everything,
Yeah.
kind of thing. People getting established into their careers and stuff like that. So I feel maybe, and here I'm going into a whole other psychological rant here. Maybe it's one of those things where this person is feeling like a little bit beneath themselves in a sense, because
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
gone through the cycle of these people coming in and out, and he's like seeing these kids that come in there with their fake IDs at one point, because that was that area. It was like it was like a multitude of connected areas in
Yeah.
Dallas. It's like between downtown and like park cities. But it was just like I thought about that too, you know, because I was looking on Facebook. I made friends with some of my guests, and I'm looking at these little girls, gorgeous little beautiful girls. I was waiting on them and their parents when they were like 10, 11, 12. One of them is now in college, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I can see where if you're still just doing a certain thing and you haven't really like progressed yourself in life, where it could turn into a bitterness or a resentment.
Right.
Be growing into something else, you know?
Right.
And so I can definitely understand where his bitterness, but I'm just like, if you're choosing to do this job and be a part of this industry, why not do it to the best of your ability?
Right. And if they're not doing that, hopefully, you know, this should, you know, it's going to reflect in the business, and ideally someone gets rid of them, their boss, you know, or the owner or whatever. So, but it's really, it's miserable to go to work in this industry if you don't like people. You know, if you're not good at what you do and you don't like what you're doing, you know, and that's why you were saying, like, I understand how you wanted to get out and go into real estate, because you kind of realize, you know, this is fun and I'm really good at it, but I can't be doing this when I'm in my 50s, you know, so I have to plan ahead. But that doesn't mean when you get out, you don't miss it, because like you were good at it and you enjoyed meeting the people and stuff like
and
that.
funny enough, as much as you do miss it from time to time and meeting new people and everything like that, I still have those server nightmares.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Go up to work and I'm like, I start a table. My regulars at that. I'll start their table. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I'll go to the computer and I'm realizing like I'm wearing nothing but my apron. And if it was a formal restaurant, my tie. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like putting the order in, and then I never get back to the table. The whole until the end, where I'm just like dropping their check off. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know where I went, what I was doing, but I never get back. And that was like, I think that was maybe one of my biggest nightmares while waiting tables, is not being able to make sure I was attentive to them. And that I was personally taking care of their, you know, I made sure to run my food all the time, or not all the time. Don't lie to Dean. I tried to make sure I run my food as much as possible, or at least when it got delivered to the table that I was there.
Yeah.
Because that eliminated more mistakes and things like that, you know. And it's just like little things like that I learned, and I felt like the industry taught me how to take care of people and just be a good human altogether.
Yeah.
And I feel like this time that we're living in, people are missing out on that.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like almost.
Especially because of the pandemic, where people are not going out as much, and so your contact.
It was even before the pandemic that I noticed this was happening. You know?
Yeah.
It was before the pandemic that I noticed this was happening, because I came back when we left New York and we're coming back to Dallas, and I went to one of these restaurants that I loved going to, because they had like these awesome fish tacos and great margaritas and stuff like that. And we went in, and it was just one of the worst experiences I had in my life.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just like, what the heck is going on? And that was 2 years prior to the pandemic.
Well, people are different now too, because of social media. So they don't actually know how to socialize with people. They just know how to socialize in social media, which is totally different, you know?
Yeah. And then you think about it, like, right. And it was like thinking about back into the witchcraft stuff, is people are accusing other people of being a certain way through social media without actually going face to face. They're just going to someone else, the world or the internet. Yeah. It is, you know what I'm saying?
No, that's a good point. And social media is very much like the Salem witches, like, because it's like everybody's always like looking for some reason. Oh, she's a witch, you know, and they're all ganging up on, and the person is like usually said something innocent, and they're like, what? Why is everybody ganging up on me? You know, and And you don't want to be the one that gets ganged up on. So you try to, oh, it's crazy.
It is. It's ridiculous. I was like, and then here's a whole other crazy topic because I was on social media and I was like, I watched this crazy video about this woman get pulled over and she just knew her shit, and she was like, she had a really old car, right? One of those really old collectibles, and they pulled her over for not having a license plate on the front of her car, which I don't know if that's a thing. So she's like, no, I have a license plate. Please look at the front.
Yeah.
Trying not, if you watch the video, it's like not listening to her. She's like, no, I have a plate on my car.
Yeah.
The cop literally walks to the front of the car and then turns back. Not even a full 5 seconds to look at the front of the car before he turns back.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see a license plate. It took her supervisor coming and looking at the front of the car to see the license plate there. But like a majority of the people on there were talking about her erratic behavior towards the cop.
Yeah.
And her demanding that she did have a license plate. She didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And things like that. And they're like, if she had just shut up or just calmed down or whatever, maybe he'd taken 10 more seconds to look at the front of the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did that make sense? Like, you have to look, if she was right and you just chose not to listen to her, so her elevation grew.
That's not the same one where the woman was smoking, right? And he was like insistent she put out the cigarette.
No.
Oh, that was a really bad one too. And
I didn't see that. Yeah,
that one that was actually
probably her son. Yeah.
This one it happened like maybe a couple months before the George Floyd thing. Yeah. And it was another really bad one because she had done nothing wrong and he pulled her over for some stupid reason. And he was just looking to fill his quota for tickets.
Yeah.
But he was a completely intolerant person. And she was like annoyed for being pulled over for no reason. And she had every reason to be annoyed. And he's telling her to put the cigarette out. And she's like, I'm in my own car. Why do I have to put my cigarette out? And he took that of her being hostile and said, step out of the car. And she refused to get out of the car and he pulled her out and arrested her. And she ended up dying in jail. I don't know if she hung herself or something. So this is now like
this
a
is not
2-year-old.
Sandra Bland.
What's that? What's her name?
Talking about Sandra Bland. I don't think she was smoking.
I don't remember. It was
Texas.
Yeah, I don't remember where it was. It was one of the worst ones I've seen. In some ways, it was almost worse than the George Floyd one because the George Floyd one was bad.
Yeah.
But at least that was the guy doing something criminal. Not that there's any excuse for what happened there, but she was like just a woman, like anybody can identify with this situation. You're driving home from work and you're doing nothing wrong. You know,
it sounds like the Sandra Bland case. I don't remember her smoking, but the Sandra Bland case, she was moving from one of the middle states to Texas to Houston, or somewhere in Texas. And she got pulled over for either not a turn signal, for not using her turn signal.
Yeah.
And they arrested her.
Yeah.
And then she died in jail.
Yeah, maybe that's the same. Maybe that's the same one.
I mean, maybe I don't know the exact like particulars as far as like what she was smoking and things like that, but she died in prison.
Yeah.
The thing is, they try to cover it up. They try to make it seem like she did kill herself and stuff like that, but that wasn't the case.
And she never the only thing about the directional thing, she hadn't taken a turn. He was tailgating her. And she panicked and switched lanes because there was a cop behind her. And then he said, you pulled over without using your directional. He's like, I was just getting out of your way, you know?
Yeah.
I had that happen to me myself 25 years ago when I was working bartending at this place right out of college. And I was driving to my parents' house. So it was like 4 a.m. after getting out of work. I had not had anything to drink. And I was on the highway and I went by where a cruiser had someone else pulled over. And there was no one else on the highway. Okay. So when I was a mile or two past, I saw the cruiser's lights go out in my rearview mirror. So I'm like, all right, he's done pulling over that person. So a few more miles later, a car is coming up. I'm in the center lane doing the exact. In fact, I had this car on cruise control at the speed limit, and I was doing the exact speed limit on cruise control. And this car's coming up behind me, and there's no other cars around. And I haven't seen any cars. So I'm in my mind, I'm thinking this is probably the cop getting back on the road, right? He comes up and he's tailgating right on my ass. So I thinking it's the cop, I put on my right directional and get into the right lane. He switches and gets behind me. Now he's tailgating me in the right lane. I put on the left directional. I get in the middle lane. He gets in the middle lane behind me. I try it again. I put on the right directional, get in the right lane. He gets in and he puts, and on comes the lights, and he pulls me over. And he's now at this point, I'm not necessarily upset, because if he's just looking for drunk drivers, all right, it makes sense to me. You know, you're looking for drunk drivers that time of night. And I don't even though and now I know, like, you can't just pull someone over for no reason. But at least if in theory, if he's just going to pull over and say, "Hey, just checking how you doing, sir," and I'd be like, "I'm fine. Thanks for checking. I haven't anything to drink." I can live with that. Okay.
Yeah.
But what happened was, so he says, "Where are you coming from?" Now, I don't think I have to tell him that, but I did. I said, "I'm coming from work." "Where do you work?" "I work at the bar. I was a bartender in Worcester, in the city." He goes, "Oh, what bar?" And he goes, "Yeah, I think I've heard of that place." I said, "I haven't had anything to drink, and I'm heading to my parents' house." He goes, "Did I say you had anything to drink?" I said, "No, but what are we here for then?" I mean, you know. So he goes, "I'll be all right. Hold on right here." So he goes back, when they're going to check all your information to make sure
Yeah.
everything. Now, I had no warrants. I had everything was in good order. But for me, getting home at that point, getting to my parents' house it's 4:30 in the morning. I've been up all day. I don't want to be sitting there for 15 minutes. I'm falling asleep, So I'm getting mad, or I will be falling asleep at the end of my trip because of this delay. It takes 15 minutes. Now he comes back and everything had checked out, and he goes, "So he's all right now." All right, sir. Thank you. And he hands it back to me. But what I didn't notice until I got home was he put on the back of my registration a citation. And it was one of those citations that you don't get a fine with, but if you get another one, it deducts from your insurance points. It was the minimum citation that he could give me, and it was something driving reckless or something like that, or whatever it was. But I absolutely did nothing wrong. I even used my directional when he's the one that really should have been cited. You can't tailgate someone on the road like that. But he had to give me something, because he couldn't say he just pulled me over to do us. You know what I'm saying? But I was enraged. I was like, it's a good thing. I remember thinking to myself, if I had seen this when he handed it to me, I might have ended up getting arrested, because I would have said something. I would have been blown off on it. I mean,
Yeah.
so I dealt with cops for as a bar owner and as a bar manager, as a bartender for a lot of years, and I had a lot of cops that worked for me, and 99% of them are just really good people. I mean, but
Yeah.
when
No,
you
I
deal with a
mean,
bad cop, it's hard because they have all the power.
no, luckily I haven't encountered a bad cop, but I have experienced moments where I feel like they were tailgating me to find something. And
Yes. Yeah.
luckily they were all intelligent enough to,
Mhm.
when they didn't find anything, they just like pulled off,
Yeah.
and even as recent as a year, not this year, earlier this year in
Yeah.
Texas, and even this year in LA,
Yeah.
that I've experienced that. And it's really scary, because you're like, are they going to turn that light on? I know I
Yeah.
didn't do anything wrong. I know
Yeah.
I wasn't speeding, and most of the time I'm like, shit, was I speeding? Because sometimes I do have a little bit of a lead foot, but I try to be
Yeah.
very careful, especially
Yeah.
with the climate we're living in. So I'm like, I make sure to look when I see a cop behind me, or even a cop pull, I'm like, was I going the right speed? I start checking things, and it's really weird because I never used to do that before.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware before of a cop tailgating me,
Yeah. It is too
because
bad. I mean, it's
they pulled off. And it was funny because even the one is recent in Texas earlier this year. I was coming from my mom's house going home, and it was through the Mixed Masters, an area we called in downtown Dallas, where several of the highways meet. And I'm going down 30, and like as 35 goes into the thing, you're like, their intersections go like this. And so the
yeah.
cop was sitting right here, and I passed him. And as soon as I passed him, I see him go. And it's like he flicked his light off, and he's flicked it back off. Then he came behind me, and he followed me for almost 2 and 3 miles while he ran his shed.
Yeah.
And then he
You
threw
know,
it.
it's an unsettling feeling, no question about it.
It's
And
very unsettling. And I was just very like, I might remember feeling a sense of relief and gratitude.
oh yeah, yeah.
Went the other way.
It makes you
Because,
want to go invent a cocktail.
right? And when you're trying not to drink, no.
Yeah. So we should probably go back towards the topic of the show if we can, or at least let's talk too about. So I'm not sure. What are your current thoughts about wanting to do either cocktail from the Crypt or some other show? What do you think? What would you be thinking about doing? What's
I
some?
mean, honestly, like you see how like we just jumped in like 500 different subject matters right now.
Yeah.
You know, like I always sense it going like that in some way or another. You know,
Mm.
of course, there's always going to be a baseline. So for me, it was just like one of those things where like my original idea was cocktails with Tadine or cocktails dot dot dot, meaning
Yeah.
whatever the topic it is of that day, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be particularly like having to be something else. It could just be conversations with me or something like that too. I don't know. Um,
Do you have a following on social media, Facebook or whatever one?
um, Not as much. But I don't post. I'm terrible. I'm really, really terrible at social media. Like I notice when I do post, I gain followers, but I really like rarely
Yeah.
post. Maybe if I get a social media manager to help.
Well, because you do have an option. I'm just thinking, trying to, one of the options that a lot of people like to do with these shows is to be able to record a live show. So you
Mm-hmm.
put it up on Facebook or Twitter or whatever your whatever one you want to use, and
Mm-hmm.
it's open to the public for people to come in and join. There is software, I haven't used it yet, called OBS, that you can do that, where you can record the show. See, like if you on YouTube, you have to have 1,000 subscribers
Mm-hmm.
first, but 1,000 subscribers and something like 80,000 total viewing hours or something like that before you can do live shows like that. But with this software, you could do it on I don't know, like Discord or Facebook or all the big ones. And so you could do something where it kind of might be conducive to where people, if you're doing a regular time, a cocktail hour, so people come in and maybe they can bring their own recipe. Hey, I got my own idea for a drink. I'm gonna mix it right here, and you can advise them or give your opinion on it or whatever. And it's just a possibility.
Yeah, maybe it's just like happy hour with Tadine or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It all
but
depends but that only works if you think you have enough people that might want to occasionally jump in and and say and hang out for a little bit. Um,
well, it could also be one of those things where because I have a lot of people that through the restaurant industry I've met that are now doing very well for themselves in different business,
yeah,
like that, like a lot of newer
yeah.
enterprises as well. So I
So if
think
you have
that
a
would,
way of reaching out to them and letting them know that you're doing it,
yeah,
um,
I
so
thought that would be
pretty,
a little thing too, just to kind of help promote their businesses and maybe talk, and that could be the subject line too, like
yeah.
what's going on in your world or something like
Because
that.
pretty much everybody over 30 at least has a Facebook, even if they don't use it regularly. At least it's like having a LinkedIn. It's like a default communication way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you reached out to them, and some of them would probably want to come in and talk with you about things in the past that working with them or serving them or whatever, serving them as a as a bartender. Um,
Yeah.
so just an idea, and I don't know. So if you were to now with our channel was the paranormal theme stuff. So I don't know if you like to stick with any of that at all, like with the cocktails from the Crypt at all.
Well, I
What's that?
mean, I guess there could be like random little episodes that pop out here and there, or it could just be like once every
Yeah,
couple of months or something. Because I wrote on my board like little random things that I wanted to talk about, like the White Witch or the Wicked
yeah,
Witch of Rose Hall and the
yeah,
Chupacabra from Mexico. Because I was thinking of like liquor to stories,
yeah,
tequila. I would do like a tequila theme
yeah,
day where Chupacabra kind of thing. So I was actually still thinking about doing that we're trying to create enough content to keep it towards that kind of
yeah, yeah,
thing. However, as you can see, we talk about one thing and then it just turns into like
Yeah, and that's one of the whole challenges. Like, do you want to, how much do you want to keep things focused so you let things go, but then you drop back after,
Yeah.
it doesn't get too far away. That's what you can do too if you have a structure. So if you're going to be on for an hour and you have 5 topics, so you can let it freewheel for a while and then go to topic 2, or that's all.
Yeah.
Those are all your
Which
decisions.
earlier we kind of did that earlier with the what we were talking about in the social media in the witch trials. Like we kind
Yeah,
of transitioned it back into that, and then I was able to make the cocktail,
yeah.
and then so it's like finding good transitions is would be one of our challenges to
Yeah.
figure out. Like if things kind of do veer off, is trying to be able to pick it back up. You know.
I think with any new show, the real challenge, and this is the challenge we faced with all of our shows. I mean, there's one thing to like get the word, obviously a problem with any show, even if you have if you have a new sitcom and it's really, really good, you got to get enough people to see it. But I think a bigger challenge with our shows is really just to try to make a show that grabs people's attention early and gets people to want to watch it. And I've tried to do that, but it's very difficult, and you have to have the right people too. So it helps to have somebody younger than me, better looking, smoother voice and all that stuff. I don't have that. So I do that, but so I've tried to structure my shows where at least I come out right out of the gate and say, this is something that we're going to talk about later that you've never heard before, and it's really going to be interesting to you. That's the goal anyways.
Mhm.
It's kind of the same thing if you were making a movie. You got to show something right at the beginning that gets people attention.
Mhm.
If you're making a new TV series, because they're only going to give you they're going to give you a few seconds to a few minutes in time, and if you don't win them over in that time, then it's not going to work. You know.
Yeah.
Um, so those are just different ideas. And I like the mix in the drink though. That
Yeah.
doing that could
I'm
be a
gonna
way
take the last
to
one. Let's see what happens. So I'm gonna
that
make a
could
mother's maple martini, and so the tree was called Mother's Maple,
yeah.
and so I'm gonna take her 100% maple syrup, and I'm gonna line the rim of the glass. Ooh, this is softer than I expected it to
Have
be.
you made this before, or are you inventing as we watch?
Well, I invented it earlier, but I haven't tasted it yet. So I'm gonna use the maple syrup to kind of like line the glass.
Yeah.
I think I'll just get rid of the excess. I just want it to be like a liner. All right, so ice, whiskey. So this is like a twist on an old fashioned, right? Get my orange peel. I'm not gonna add the bitters.
Do you have bitters in your house?
No.
Yeah, I've never met
I
anybody
have
that has bitters in their house.
Way to call me out. Way to call me out. No.
I've never seen anybody have bitters in their house.
Well, I was trying to grab a. I didn't realize this recipe until earlier, and I just didn't have time.
One of my main reasons for stocking the bar with bitters is that it is a almost 100% foolproof method of curing the hiccups.
Is it?
You take bitters and you put a healthy amount in a glass of soda water, and because people get this in the bar all the time and it'll ruin their night, right?
Yeah.
You give them a drink of soda water with 2 straws, and you tell them to just drink it down. Once you start, don't stop until you finish the drink. And that'll work 98 out of 100 times. That'll work immediately. And on the other couple of times that it doesn't work, you just give them another one and say another half a glass should do it for you. And it works all the time. If you're ever back in the industry.
Huh?
If you're ever back working in as a bartender.
Well, the thing is, I knew the hungover one was what bitters and ginger ale, and what else was it?
I don't know. And nothing ever works for my hangover. So
No, we used to make one. There was one that we used to make at the bar, and I don't remember what it is because I've been like bartending it so long. But it was a bitter. It was like a little bit of ginger ale, a little bit of bitters, and I want to say there was something else mixed in there. Maybe some lime juice or something like that, and we just give it to our guests on like a
No alcohol in it?
no, no,
No.
yeah, and they would just like shoot it, and they'd be like, okay, I'm good to go. Yeah.
Are those oranges? Are those, I'm sorry. Were those oranges right there on top of the ice, or?
It is. This is I peeled a piece of the orange, and then
Okay.
because it broke, I put a piece on the rim, and then I put one into the martini glass.
Okay. And what alcohol is in the martini? Jack Daniels and what else, or
Just Jack.
just Jack? Okay.
Yeah, the ice added the water.
Yeah. Well, it has a nice color to it.
Thank you. Just like a regular like a straight martini, right?
Yeah.
But what's gonna make the difference is the 100% maple that lines
Yeah.
glass.
Yeah.
And then orange peel.
So it's basically just maple, Jack Daniels, and a little bit of the orange flavor from the peel.
Orange peel. Cheers.
Is it good?
Oh my god! Like seriously, wow.
I like the idea. If I still own the bar, I would try that with the maple syrup. I like the idea a lot.
Totally. Like no, seriously, this I could totally drink this. Like it's almost like drinking a whiskey on the rocks, like a really good whiskey on the rocks.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a very like adult drink because you're not mixing up, something with a bunch of different mixers. You just have it's basically mostly booze with just a little bit of flavor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to, it's kind of, one of my favorite drinks I used to drink was the Godfather, just scotch and amaretto. And I drank these on my own. I just wanted the tiniest possible splash of amaretto just to take the edge off the scotch. And and that's kind of like that, just a little bit of the maple syrup.
The maple might have taken the edge off the whiskey.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't have that harsh whiskey vibe going on.
Yeah.
Almost like, I don't want to say water, but you taste it and then you're like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
And then then you understand that there's whiskey in there.
Yeah. No, I think that's a winner. I would definitely put it on the menu because it looks good. What's that?
This is our Mother's Maple Martini. Mother's Maple Martini.
Mother's Maple Martini. All right.
Yeah, to represent the tree that they were warned not to chop down.
That's right.
Anyway.
See, that's good. You have a theme. We start out with a story related to our particular channel with the paranormal stuff, and you take that and use that to invent a cocktail. That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So if you told people ahead of time what the topic might be, like chupacabra, then other people might.
This is going to be called the Witch's Brew, the one that I did the Sangria version, Witch's Brew is what I called it. And then of course the Mother's Maple, because you have the maple syrup line in the glass and stuff like that. And of course you don't have to throw out the excess like I did. I just don't like the stuff being really sweet. Mm-hmm. So for me, this is great because it's like a nice balanced flavor.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we've hit the hour mark now. So I think that was a really good first show, and I'd be welcome to doing any more that you want to do. I had fun. So
that was pretty cool. I just have to figure out how to what I want my focus to be and then structure it properly.
Let me stop recording, but not end the podcast is there anything you want to say goodbye to people or threaten them to tune into your future shows?
Just watch out for me on social media, Simply Tadine or at Simply Tadine, right? And then Facebook, just Tadine Lucia, or is it Tadine Nishanette Lucia? I never remember if I use my middle name on Facebook. So I'm just gonna take a quick look at what my Facebook.
What's your middle name?
Nishanette. Very French.
Oh wow.
Ooh la la.
You have a very musical name.
I know, Tadine Nishanette Lucia. Formerly Williams. But yeah, no, it's funny because I've been interacting with a lot of French people lately.
Oh.